welcome to the Alchemy Cafe, where we're creating conscious conversations. Today I am here with Jody Cross, who is a licensed psychotherapist. In addition, she does work with horses. I think it's called equine therapy, right? Is that pretty much?
Yeah.
Which I am totally fascinated with and had actually had an experience myself. So, Jody, I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, Laura. I wish I was more of a canine therapist, too. It would be great if I was a dog-assisted therapist, but I'm not.
Well, I think that's what's going on here,
Eloise.
is that Eloise is like feeling a little jealous because we're going to be talking about horses, so she's just like wants to get in on the action. So this is really great, and I love this. And we're both such animal lovers, so this is like perfect.
Yeah. One of the things that she may be doing, which horses do, is sensing my anxiety. Like, I'm a little bit nervous right now to be here and to be talking to you, and she's a little bit nervous coming over to maybe soothe me, to see what's wrong. Who knows? But I think she senses the anxiety.
So I guess my first question, what I'm really curious about, is sort of like, what came first? Your interest in people, or your interest in animals, or horses particularly? But did you grow up with horses? Were you riding horses?
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I grew up with horses. But first I want to say, Laura, that I find your work and what you're doing was so interesting, that you're pulling together different people and different schools of thought and just expanding our ideas.
Thanks, Jody. I'm so glad to have you part of it.
Yeah, just something to give our minds, open our minds to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew you were on my list right from the beginning because the work that you do is so profound, and it's something that not many people know about. I mean, people don't know that you can actually do really, really deep work working with animals. So, what is your history with horses?
Yeah, so getting back to your question. So, yes, I grew up around horses, and during my adolescence, I would say my horse was my best friend. The female horse, her name was Dixie. And for a few years, going through a rough time as a teenager, as is not uncommon, she was my best friend. And I would just jump on her, and we would just fly like the wind and ride and run errands on her. My parents would actually send me to the grocery store to get groceries for dinner, for example. I come from a large family, 5 children, 2 parents. And I would ride my horse bareback to the grocery store, tie her up in the parking lot of Winn-Dixie in the South in Florida, tie her up in the parking lot in Winn-Dixie, run into the store, probably in bare feet. It's a long time ago.
Right.
And grab all the groceries for dinner and jump back on her and gallop back up the highway back down to our house.
That is so fabulous. I just love and the image of you getting in and doing that.
Yeah.
So you had a connection from a really young age, and you had a comfort level with them.
Yes, I did. And then, so that was a lot of fun. But then I got out of horses for many, many years. I moved to New York and got married and, did went about my way, got an education, etc. And then came back to horses in a more formalized way. I started taking English riding lessons. I started learning dressage, jumping. And to tell you the truth, I did that for a few years, and that was a very stressful time of my life. I was not enjoying it. It was sort of, it was not fun. And I knew...
Because it wasn't organic.
It was not organic anymore. And even more so, my heart wasn't in it. It was, I've got to get the 20-meter circle. If I could just get the 20-meter circle right and my leg in the right position.
Which is the complete opposite from what you described earlier, just being you and the horse. You and the horse just, doing your thing together. And now this is so formal and controlled.
Oh, yes.
So, wow,
and exacting and precise and formalized, and the heart was out of it. The bottom line is, there was no heart. There was very little relationship heart. Yeah.
What about your interest in getting into psychotherapy? When did that come about?
We're traveling back to my teenage years here. Honestly, the truth is, when I was a teenager and when I was a child, my mother used to watch Days of Our Lives, and I watched it too. I watched it. There's a character.
I hate to say.
And you watched it too?
Marlena Evans, right?
Marlena
Evans.
Exactly. I didn't remember her last name, but her first name is Marlena. I think she's still on.
It's scary that I remember that. She was a twin.
Was she a twin?
Yes. She's an identical twin. I don't remember the twin.
She was a therapist, and she had this office, and she had a desk, and people would come to her and talk to her about their problems.
So you wanted to play therapist too.
And I think that I probably fantasized about that for a long, long time. Though I strayed from that in my 20s. I got into the film business. It's where I met my husband. I was in the entertainment business, going back and forth from New York to California a lot for several years, and then decided to go back to school. And I finished, as I was finishing my bachelor's, I started school very late. As I was finishing my bachelor's, I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and so the doors were opening, and the guidance was opening to become a therapist. So when my marriage was ending, and I was wondering what I was going to do to bring it back to horses, it was a really low point in my life. Like, I felt like a real failure. Like, what happened? I thought everything was fine. I had read a bunch of self-help books. I really thought I understood.
That's it. That's all you need.
Right.
You need a couple of books and
Right.
it just falls into place.
Right. I've overcome my childhood, everything. I'll read a couple of self-help books and it will all be fine. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. I felt like a failure, and I felt at a really, really low point in my life. And then I was at a workshop, actually, where it was a personal growth workshop, really wonderful place. And I started seeing the light, like coming out of some of the fog I was in. And they had a horse program there where they put horses with people to help relationships. And I thought, wow, I could never be a therapist like I thought I could be years prior. But, because I could never talk to people. That's how bad it had gotten. But I could probably work with horses to help people, because I have a connection to horses.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, so I feel like the horses, sort of as a spiritual guide, sort of helped pull me out and say, you have meaning here.
Wow.
So I left that workshop and went to a horse workshop where out in Arizona, where they brought in people, and they were putting people with horses, and I was a participant, and I felt really connected to the work and drawn to the work and called to the work, and came home and finished my degree, and then went through my licensing, and all the while in the field of equine assisted therapy as well. So I was doing the traditional route, and at the same time I was also at the beginning. That was a long time ago, so that was like at the beginning of some of the equine assisted therapy work going on today.
And how does that come about? Is it suggested to somebody to say, wow, you would really benefit from working with the horses, or is it more, by the way, we have this, would you be interested? Does the person come to you for that specific type of work, or is it suggested to them depending on what their needs are?
Yeah, it's both. So I have a lot of people who feel drawn to horses for one reason or another, who ask about the work. But then I have other people who aren't interested in horses whatsoever, but because of what they're going through relationally or in their lives, that the horse could help bring about some awareness and some potential healing and growth and help. Yeah. So horses are used, for example, in the 80s, they were used in treatment centers, like in alcohol and drug treatment centers. So typically, the patients in these places weren't necessarily asking for equine assisted therapy. It was just part of their program. And what we found was that, and any kind of addiction or compulsive behavior, you're disconnected from your body, right? You're disconnected from your feelings. Your mind is chaotic. And what the horses were doing in the 80s with these treatment center participants was they would help them identify what was going on in their body. So if a horse was here right now, a horse would still help me. Eloise might be doing it instead of the horse. Let me know that there's still anxiety in my body.
And how would they do that?
They might do it by acting anxiously. If there was a horse right here,
so they're mirroring what's going on for you.
They don't always do that. but they can do that. That's one thing that they can do.
Mm.
For example, if I'm nervous and I walk up to a horse, he might get nervous too, and then it's an invitation to check my body. Am I nervous? I can relax, you know, or I can use my tools then to relax and bring my body back to a working space, you know, a calm place. So a horse can mirror. They can also, because their electromagnetic field is bigger than ours, they can also help soothe an anxious nervous system. And there's actually research to show that.
Wow.
Yeah. We have research to show if, so a group of women were put with a few horses. And I don't think there were any men involved. And they put a heart monitor on the horse and a heart monitor on the human. And they watched the heart rate before and after and during. And the anxious heart rate of the human decreased as it was as it got nearer to the horses, who was already at more of a balanced, fluid variable.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Really
And
interesting.
so a lot of us say, "Oh, I just feel really good around horses. I just love feeling that feeling." There's that sort of magical feeling, and we're also starting to study that and what's happening to the human body and the horse's body during those times of, I just feel really good.
Yeah, I wonder if it's also taking you out of your head and what you're feeling, and the focus is like this. You have this majestic being in front of you who's very calm, you know, most of the time, and it's kind of like, wow, you're able to sort of let your stuff go and just sort of focus on it and receive what they're offering. So it's that. I had a really, really interesting experience. I did a couple of sessions with Jody just to kind of see what it was like. I led a retreat, and Jody was one of the retreat leaders doing some equine therapy with people. So I wanted to experience it myself before, and within the first, 10 minutes, I was already like, oh my God, this is incredible. And all you did was ask me, there were 6 horses in the stalls, and you asked me to just pick one that I want, or go introduce yourself, and then go pick one horse. And immediately all these crazy thoughts came up, like, oh my God, am I doing this right? And what do I do? And if I go over them, am I supposed to touch them? All of these thoughts and doubts that you would just kind of have in different life situations. So I was like, I don't know, how close am I supposed to get? And am I supposed to? So it's this behavior that we think how we're supposed to be in social situations, totally applied to how I thought I was supposed to be with these horses, and then kind of went to each one and was feeling just really out of my comfort zone. And I picked one horse, and then Jody asked me why I picked that one. And the fascinating thing was all the reasons why I picked that particular house was also kind of the way I would pick someone to date. It was the same kind of thing, and that's something that comes up. It's like, how we choose relationships. So it was incredible. It was really, really magical. And there were a couple of other experiences too within that where I was just like blown away as to just how you feel when you're around them and what they bring up for you instantly. I mean, this work is just really profound. So that was really incredible.
Yeah. So Laura, you bring up that the idea that we bring our relationship template to the horse,
Yes.
right? So when I first picked a horse, given the herd, right? Who would you like to work with today? I picked the one that looked really good, but he was on the other side of the field saying, I don't want to have anything to do with anybody. And I said, I want him. He looks good. I like a good challenge. You can imagine. So that was worthy of exploring just in my picking,
Right.
And so you can imagine how that relationship played out over the next couple of days.
Even
I was in a relationship with somebody who didn't want to be there.
Right.
And the horse is going to show you that. He showed me in the beginning, and he showed me that for the next couple of days as well. Like, I'm not that interested in being with you, so you can work really hard to be with me.
Well, I picked the one who was really interested in me. He would came right over, and I was like, and different looking at spots. He was like, well, you're different, you're cool, I like you, and you're interested in me. So I don't have, and there was one that wouldn't even turn around. I have butt, front, and I'm like, well, you're too much work. So it was on to the next. I mean, if nothing else, that is such an incredible exercise for people to do.
Nobody ever forgets their
Yes.
first equine activity.
So
If
cool.
the therapist has asked them to do this activity, nobody ever forgets it. I hear to this day, a decade later, I'll hear, I remember I picked that horse who was running around and he had all this energy and, he wouldn't come to me and it was just like my boyfriend at the time. He was always running around. I could never get him to settle. Things like that. Yes, we bring it right in.
It's
Right.
so cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned addiction earlier. What other types of issues would you suggest people work with horses? Relationships, obviously.
Well, I specialize in relationship trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So that's trauma with a small t. So big T trauma is like 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
right? Small t trauma is the trauma that's a little more trickier to track sometimes. To define relationship trauma, it's whenever that attachment to a caregiver in the beginning, it would be during childhood to a caregiver, is fractured in any way. So let's say somebody grows up with a depressed mother. She's not completely there.
It's not available.
She's not completely available for the full attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So, or how about an alcoholic father, for example? He's not completely there. So rather than have the complete attachment process, the child's mind, our mind, has to make sense of this. So we go into sort of what I would call the false self or survivor ways of being.
Mm-hmm.
One of those ways of being might be people pleasing. So with the horses, all of these little ways of being, like people pleasing, collapsing, withdrawing, medicating, substances, getting really aggressive, are all ways that we've sort of survived when we're feeling a little fear,
Mm-hmm.
feeling anxious, feeling afraid, right? And it's subtle. Some of this can be pretty subtle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the stuff that gets overlooked because people won't go into therapy because, well, everything's really fine. I mean, my husband and I haven't had sex in 5 years, but everything's fine. It's the little stuff.
Right,
It's this
right.
little stuff that we're talking about. And that kind of trauma gets stored in our bodies, okay? Because it's developed early on, right? It has very young roots.
Mm-hmm.
And then we continue the patterns in our system and in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I follow a lot of the brain science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our nervous system. So those patterns are all neural networked in our system, okay? So you don't call me one day. I go into, my brain hears, oh, my friend hasn't called me. Why didn't she call me today? And I go into what might be a survivor skill for me, which was, I'm not going to call her either. I'm going to withdraw further.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, because it's just in our systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, we get to the horses. And we bring this template with us. So, first it's all honeymoon phase, right? Just like it is in real life. It's all honeymoon phase in the beginning. But then, when the relationship starts progressing, let's say we want the horse to do something. Let's say we want to ride the horse,
Mm-hmm.
go on a trail ride. So now the relationship's more complicated and things are coming up. For example, we were in Mexico last month on retreat, and I took a group out who were beginner riders. And one of them, her horse kept bumping into another horse.
Mm-hmm.
So she was upset and she was complaining. My horse keeps bumping into that horse. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. He keeps bumping into that horse. I'm getting so frustrated. And so I asked her what was happening. And she said, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, okay, so what do you need to do? She said, well, I already tried all of that. So she was very quickly getting herself into a worked up mode where she was collapsing. Because I had asked her previously, just pull on his reins. But she was getting so excited that she could not just pull on the reins to guide him. So she was collapsing in her relationship because of the anxiety got so high for her. And then she was collapsing, saying, I can't do anything. I can't stop him from bumping into the horses. So, number one, we trigger the old pattern. And then, with proper guidance, we can notice it and make a choice to do something different. So then she has to, number one, calm her body down. Number 2, do the next right thing. Pull the horse back.
And
the horse, of course, responds. So this is...
That would be what I would do. I'd be like, Jody, the horse is...
Yes. So
or
one...
I just pull the reins. Yeah, but... And I would
Yeah,
want to give you this
but,
whole...
exactly.
I would want to give you this whole explanation
Exactly.
as to... But look, he's going over here, and if I do this... It's,
Yes,
yeah.
and we do that, right, in relationships all the time. But sometimes in relationships, we want our full adult, clear self on board, right? We don't really, our child self, our survivor, false self, childlike self, some call it the inner child, we don't want that self running our adult relationships, right? So with the horses, I want your adult relationship on board, right? So, because that's more advanced. We're riding, we're out in the Mexican countryside or somewhere. You don't want to be collapsing, you don't want to be fighting, you don't want to be overly pleasing him. All of that is going to turn your relationship unsafe, right? It's all going to go downhill. Your relationship, you're not going to have a good ride. It could turn very unsafe. And so it's all right there to fix.
So it's interesting. So you do this kind of work with people, and it's obviously can be very profound. They're experiencing it in that moment, which many times you're talking through something, you're not in the experience itself.
That is exactly what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what is needed for deep change.
Mm-hmm.
The whole experience, the body and the circuitry is all involved.
And then that goes into a memory, and then they know, wow, look at that. Look what I just did.
It's installed.
And it's empowering.
Because your nervous system was in it. I was anxious. I was trying to stop the horse, right? So the whole nervous system's involved.
Right.
Now we're going to fix it and heal it.
And then they see the result, and then they feel more empowered.
And then different networking. They just created a new network in their body.
And they're relaxed. And it's a totally different state. And then that goes into their memory.
Yes.
So when the next time they're in that situation. So it's really incredible. What would you say is most people, what's their big takeaway? Like after they've done some work with the horses, when they, other than the initial, choosing of the horse, what do most people say is like the thing that stays with them the most? Is there something in particular? Does it really depend on...
I think it's so powerful because the horse is 1,000 pounds on average. And the horse is just being themselves. They don't go into the future and they don't go into the past. They go into the present relationship where humans get out of, right? Like your experience when you walked up to the barn the first time and you were trying to figure out the relationship in your head while I was inviting you to just be with the horses, right? We do that all the time. Humans do that all the time. It's a way of leaving the relationship. Horses are present in it. So they're giving you, they're not thinking ahead and they're not thinking behind. They're giving you direct feedback about how you are influencing this relationship right now. Good, bad, or indifferent. They're giving you direct feedback about how this is going. And I think that's the most powerful general piece. They're not confusing. They're actually really simple.
I would think it also gives people an awareness that they probably didn't have previously about just how their energy, not only with yourself, but your interaction with animals or other people. And, I just think to have that experience and that perception of that is super valuable. I mean, that's kind of what, when I work with people in terms of like point of attraction and law of attraction and understanding, it's all about your awareness in the present moment and what your point of attraction is. And it's the same kind of thing.
Yes, the horses bring people to the present moment. And they keep inviting, in a relationship with a horse, it will keep inviting you back to the present moment.
You have to be. You're in it with them, right there.
You're right there. So part of what we do on the Mexico retreats is it's sort of an immersion in mindfulness and presence. The whole program is designed around being present to exactly what is.
So I imagine for some people it has to be a little difficult and it has to be a lot of things to come up because especially now in our culture, we're so distracted and we're so not in the present with our quiet thoughts. And to be immersed in that is probably really, really incredible. And I'm sure there's a lot of discomfort for people in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Meaning, wow, I'm not used to just being with myself and my thoughts or in this experience right now. And wow, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay that it doesn't necessarily feel so.
It can be challenging. And in a safe environment, one can have those discomfort, those uncomfortable feelings come up. And your body stimulated and your body remembering where you've run into this before. That's what we want.
Right.
I don't want to, it's not helpful for me. You can go on a vacation anywhere, right? I want to help you open up anything inside that's not working for you. And in that place, then we can help heal it. And then we move into the therapy that helps, that's necessary to help heal it. And that's a variety of skills and tools as well. So I practice psychodrama, we journal, we write letters, we do empty chair work, we bring the horses in. There's a lot that goes on.
Pretty intense stuff.
Yes. So in terms of these retreats, I wanted a place where I wanted to create an experience where people could do a little bit of this work, this kind of personal growth work, in a safe place. And at the same time, be really nurtured and really filled up.
And be in an incredibly beautiful environment as well.
In an incredibly beautiful environment and some adventure to expand the brain, right? To expand the human experience. Right?
They sound magical.
Yeah. I wanted the whole combination for safety and for growth and for ultimately an immersion in heart connection, what we're all trying to get to.
And then what happens when they come back from the retreat?
So what happens? Thank you for asking that.
Well, that's always a bit, an intention of mine when I do my retreats. What happens when you come back and everyone gets right back into their old patterns and their old lifestyle?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So because of the way the program is set up, it's experiential. We're not thinking up here. We're not sitting there thinking about our lives. We are in our lives, in the program, in relationship to the horses, to Mother Nature, to one another, mindfully. So we're changing our whole system every moment, right? So when we come back, a lot of it is just in there now. We have installed it. It's in our bodies, it's in our hearts, it's in our minds now. And there's also another part of it that is that, where you'll get skills and tools for, this is when this is happening again. This is when I'm collapsing in a relationship again. This is when I'm taking over the relationship again. Or maybe I'm fantasizing and distorting what I think somebody's thinking about me. All those things that we do, they're subtle, but I know most of us do them. We make up stories when the relationship's not right there. You can't do that when you're living really mindfully. And
that's the opportunity.
That's the opportunity.
You're
say, wow, right there.
And I've done that a number of times where I'd say, wow, in the past, this is what I would have done. I'm not doing that this time.
I'm not doing that.
Wow.
Your body and your circuitry has changed. And you're also mentally just more aware. Like when you do it, if you do it again, you know.
Right.
Oh, I did this before. It's not such an unconscious pattern
It's an
anymore.
awareness that comes to the surface, whereas before it was completely dormant. It was not.
So the unconscious pattern of, why do I keep getting into relationships like this? Why am I doing this? Like, I need to leave him, or I need to leave her, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, but I can't. An immersion in a program like this is what will help bring those things out and up. And if you've created a safe enough place for them to come up and out, they can be healed then.
Yeah. Amazing.
So you don't have to keep on going through patterns that aren't good for you, but why can't I get out of them? I don't know anybody who hasn't said that before.
Right.
Right? Or why is this so unhappy? Why am I so unhappy? Or why am I so unsatisfied?
Mm-hmm. And what's
Yeah.
amazing is bringing people back to the simplicity of nature, of the environment, say in Mexico where your retreats are, and with the horses, it's bringing you back to the simplicity of nature as opposed to this technological age that we're living in. That's where the healing really happens.
Yeah, and it's very powerful when you're
Mhm.
out there and the sky is gigantic above you, you know, and there's mountains surrounding you and the wind is whipping through the canyon and there's horses everywhere. You can't really disconnect that quickly,
Exactly.
you know? You're sort of getting nourished and, you know, getting really filled up.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Jody, this is any parting thoughts before we wrap up in terms of if someone was considering doing this kind of work or coming on a retreat?
Yeah, jump in, do it. I feel like if I've met many people over the last decade or so who experienced horses maybe in their childhood the way I did, but somehow grew away from them, or maybe never experienced them but would like to. They sort of feel attracted to them. I say go find some horses and see what happens. Go. There's also all these practical things we've been talking about relationships, but there's also some magical stuff that happens with horses that you can't explain. You just can't explain. That's really magical. Yeah, I could give you hundreds of examples now. But I say that if you know the horses are calling you, you know, maybe they're like a spirit guide or something, and they have some information for you.
Go for it, yeah.
Go for it. The other thing I would say is relationship safety is fluid. And with the horses, your safety in relationship is always being worked on. And what happens with people is we get into relationships and we say, we're married, for example, or we're BFFs, or you're my boss, and you know, and we because we made that commitment, we think about safety and trust is now forever. And that's not true. Right. If you said that to a horse, in an hour, right. You know, the horse would be walking that direction when you wanted to be going that direction, right? It's safety in relationships is always ongoing. It's fluid.
Well, so is a relationship. A relationship is a journey. It's not a destination.
No.
And people confuse that. They think once I have the relationship, I'm done. A relationship is the journey. It's the same exact thing.
It's the mindful in and out of the relationship. The relationship is giving you the information you need. I used to say, well, I'm not really sure. Am I too passive or am I too aggressive? I'm not really sure where I'm at. I know a lot of people can relate to this, I think. And what I've learned is each relationship will tell you. For some relationships, you may need to show up more. For other relationships, you may need to back off more. Right? We all have a tendency towards one end of that spectrum or the other. But the relationship will always tell me. Right? I haven't heard from that person in a few days. Oh, I need to call them again to let them know I'm waiting to hear from them.
Yeah, no, great. That's
the relationship will tell you what you need. Yeah.
And so will the horse.
And the horses, getting back to the horses are herd animals, just like humans. And they're constantly in relationship, present in the moment. So they're always relating to one another. They're always working out this stuff, just like humans.
Right. Right. Oh, they're magical. I would suggest to anybody if they have the opportunity to spend some time. And so if people want to get a hold of you and find out more about your retreats and your work, and what's the best way for people to find you?
Sure. Well, they can go to my website or call me.
Which is?
My website. My website is jodycrosstherapy.com. They can go there. I'm on Facebook as Jody Cross on Facebook. Yes, I have a workshop coming up in April in Mexico for a week, like April 30th through May 6th, I think it is. We have one more this year. I also have another one coming up in Montana through Onsite Workshops. I'll be leading that one for Onsite. We'll be riding horses and camping along the Continental
Nice.
Divide.
Really nice.
A really, really incredible
Great.
experience.
Great. Jody, thank you so much for being here. This
Thanks
is
for
great.
having
and
me,
I learned
Laura.
so much more. I didn't think I knew it all, but I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And I actually learned so much about your work and you, and thanks again. Great to have you here.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here, and I love the work that you're doing
Great.
and expanding our minds.
And next
consciousness.
time we'll do it with horses.
Definitely.
You
Let's
will do
go
it
out
with
and play.
horses. Cool. Thanks everyone. See you next time.